Are you on the fence about homeschooling? Maybe asking yourself the questions, should I homeschool my child? And is homeschooling right for my family? Those are questions I hear a lot, and I get it. I asked the same ones when I started feeling like I was being called to homeschool. It's normal to feel a sense of trepidation at the thought of homeschooling, whether from fear of not feeling adequate, fear of how much time or money it might take, fear of how it will change your life, or fear of something else. Many of us wonder if homeschooling is the right choice. In this three-part series, we'll explore the following. Part one, 5 things about the public school that you can avoid if you choose to homeschool. Part two, 5 things you'll be sorry you missed if you choose not to homeschool. And part three, 5 questions to answer for yourself when evaluating whether you should homeschool. Hey, I'm Kathleen Rumford, and truth be told, I barely knew what homeschooling was and whether it was even a legal alternative when I started researching it back in the early 2000s. But in the end, I stepped out of a high-paying software development job and homeschooled my kids for 15 years, which I actually consider my life's greatest work. So before we dive into part one, let me first just list the questions I'd encourage you to consider and which I'll expound upon in more detail in part three as you determine whether homeschooling is right for your family. And I'll include these in the description. Number one, do you feel called to homeschool or have a curiosity about homeschooling, whether from God or an inner stirring that is leading you to explore homeschooling? Number two, do you believe learning at home is a better environment for your child from the perspective of safety, nurturing, social, emotional, mental development, and character, values, and faith development? Number three, do you believe you can be equipped to homeschool through your own research, in-person homeschooling community groups, homeschooling Facebook and Instagram groups, in-person co-ops, and the support of your family unit and the Lord if you're a believer? Number four, can you give your kids and yourself opportunities for socializing with other homeschoolers through co-ops, field trips, clubs, as well as with friends, neighbors, and within the community? Finally, have you evaluated your priorities and what you really want for your kids and your family and how homeschooling fits in with this? This is one of the most important questions because you'll need to lean on your reason for homeschooling and how it fits in with your family mission when times get tough. So we'll dive into those more in part three. And if this series is helpful to you, please like the video and subscribe to this channel for more videos on homeschooling, including homeschooling through high school. And in this video, I want you to consider this. If you've raised your kids well in a safe and healthy environment for their first 5 to 6 years, why do you think the school system might be a better place for them now? Since there are so many reasons to homeschool, and honestly, you've been teaching them their first 5 or 6 years, what pushes us to put our kids in school rather than educating them at home? Let's start with 5 things that can be avoided in the public school when you finally choose to homeschool. Number one, the first thing you can avoid is being part of the norm of having the false mindset that sending kids out to school is just the thing you do at a certain age because it's considered normal and expected legally, and because that's how your child will get educated and become socialized. We'll address academic education and social development further on in part two, but from a legal standpoint, homeschooling is not only legal, but also widely accepted as a viable educational option across the United States. It's true that your state may have certain guidelines regarding curriculum, instruction, testing, and showing proof of progress. But homeschooling as a normal option is becoming mainstreamed as more and more people are choosing to homeschool their children. The second thing you can avoid by homeschooling is the state's agenda and values. I see the role of public schools as teaching children basic education, but teachers are being asked to do so much more. And I truly admire and appreciate those that are educating and standing in the gap of protecting our children from the political, philosophical, moral, and ethical agendas and values that we find prevalent in our school systems. Those agendas and values are a strong reason more families are opting to homeschool in the past few years. We started homeschooling when my daughter was in second grade, but when she was in first grade, I was able to opt her out of some of the family life instruction that the school was hosting. I personally didn't feel it was the school's place to determine the content nor the timing for my child in this area. Things have gotten more challenging as some of what's being introduced to kids in the classroom is not something that parents even know about and are able to opt out of. Problem is, many parents don't even realize that these things are being taught, shown, or relayed to their kids, or they aren't taking the time to find out and do some research. And some of those that are pushing back are being thwarted by the powers that be. I've witnessed it firsthand here in my own county. Another thing that can be avoided by homeschooling is being raised and influenced by others. Honestly, children are spending 180 days times 7 hours a day with teachers, peers, kids on the bus of various ages. That's a lot of their waking hours, picking up others' beliefs, values, mannerisms, habits, peer pressure, and such, and being exposed to things on school buses, including negative peer influences, cell phones, forms of bullying or prejudice, whether directed at them or others, can have significantly ill effects. I remember being on the school bus as a kid and being confused by things going on around me, including by kids a few years older than me. And consider this, when my daughter was in the public school, first grade, she was up at 7, out the door at 7:30, home around 3, then after a snack, homework, a chore, playtime with neighborhood kids, dinner and a book, bedtime came by 8:30. Due to our limited amount of quantity time, there was a limited amount of quality time to be had with her. So she was picking up beliefs, values, and habits elsewhere, or worse. I certainly didn't have much time or hope of understanding what was happening, let alone counteracting it. The fourth thing you can avoid by homeschooling is lost time due to classroom and student management. The amount of time spent commuting to and from school, waiting for classrooms to settle down, taking turns, busy work, changing classes, and the occasional behavioral issues is time lost to true education, let alone other things beneficial to a child, like character development, developing hobbies, music and art skills, entrepreneurship, and honing a child's craft, whatever that might be. The lost time cannot be gotten back, but homeschooling can avoid it. The fifth and final thing we'll talk about here that you can avoid by homeschooling is having your child taught in a style or manner that isn't conducive to their best way of learning. Let's consider the 4 basic learning styles: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and read-write, which is basically reading and taking notes. If your child's learning style doesn't mesh with the style being used in the classroom, your child might find it difficult to learn. I cannot tell you how much knowing my kids' learning style helped us when we homeschooled. One of my girls was primarily an auditory learner and the other primarily a visual learner. But if your child is a kinesthetic learner who likes to move around, take breaks, and work with their hands, they might find many classrooms a challenge. I've linked a few resources about this in the description, including the book I read when we started homeschooling, but also a few articles online that can provide great insight into how your child learns best. These insights alone might convince you that homeschooling your child is essential because in a classroom of dozens of kids, not all styles can be met. In fact, without realizing why, your child might fall behind, act out, or shrink inside themselves because they're being boxed in. Now, while this is not an exhaustive list of things you can avoid in the public school by homeschooling, these are the ones I wanted to focus on while you're determining if homeschooling is right for your family. Do you have any to add? Please share them in the comments and like and subscribe before clicking over to part 2 of this series, where we explore 5 things you'll be sorry you missed if you choose not to homeschool. Until next time, God bless.